I need to try and not screw up the name of the company as well.
Introversion.
Yeah, that's...
Is it a tricky one to wrap your tongue around?
Introversion. Because... Yeah, anyway. Is it? Hang on, let me check the mic's on. Yeah, it is, cool. It's a mistake I made yesterday.
Why, what did you say?
No, turning on the mic.
Oh, you did the whole thing without it on?
Yeah. And it would be alright if the camera, like, the onboard mic records, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
You just get zero audio.
Oh dear, that was your phone.
Ooh. Dun dun dun. Ooh, that's a big shatter.
Oh no.
Oopsies.
Oh no.
It's not like I needed it or anything. Damn it. Have you been recording that?
Yes.
Good.
I'm going to the outtakes.
The issue is, right, you mention outtakes. I have more outtakes than I have actual video.
Well,
like, it's not even funny.
Thing, right? Maybe that'll be your thing.
God damn it.
Okay, remind me not to drop my phone in here.
It's like pure concrete floors.
The noise bit as well, it was like, is in it?
Oh, hang on, it just did a thing.
It didn't sound too bad. It didn't sound as bad as my phone usually set up to.
Oh well. I'm here with Mark from Introversion Software. Is that it? Hey, I did it.
Introversion Software.
Introversion Software, which is the company behind Prison Architect.
Indeed.
So tell us about the sort of beginnings, because Prison Architect isn't exactly the kind of game which you kind of wake up one morning and you're like, oh, I know, I want to do a game about a prison.
Well, maybe it is if you're us, you know. That's basically what happened. It's been in early access now for quite a while. We launched it in October of last year, so version 1's out there. But we've been working on it for about sort of 4 years, and there was a couple of years before that, so quite a while. But basically, we were stuck in a little bit of a rut. We had a big city simulator, right? And we couldn't find anything to do within our city simulator, and that's a lot of scope. You know, we were simulating everything from the construction of the buildings down to like the wiring within the buildings. You know, a huge amount of detail. And one of the levels within that game was basically a prison break, right? So we tried to simulate a prison, and then you as the player had to break a prisoner out by like hacking the doors and you know, doing those kind of things, right? I've just watched an episode of Mr. Robot where he does exactly that.
Yes.
You know, he like jacks.
That's a great show, actually.
It's
very good.
It's very good. And what we realised was that designing the levels within Subversion was actually the most fun.
Right.
And so that was part of the ingredients, plus a trip to Alcatraz, that kind of made my pal Chris, the
trip to
head
Alcatraz.
designer, it made him think, I'm going to do a prison building game, right?
Yes.
I'm going to build a game where the prisoners are going to come in, they're going to need to eat, they're going to need to sleep, you know, they're going to need to do all these things that, you know, eventually develop. But that's where it started. Really simple, you know, and you just draw the lines of the cells, right? And the prisoners were like just little red blocks that, you know, move around through the prison. And then after like 6 years of development, we get to, well, I don't know if you see, but
this massive eye and
enormous prisons,
cube.
Yeah, exactly, that people have done on the Steam Workshop.
Yeah. So you mentioned sort of the Steam Workshop aspect of it. What's the craziest design you've seen? Like, because that's the thing, when you put it out to the public, they just go wild with it, I assume.
I mean, we were quite careful in constricting some of the elements of Prison Architect, so you couldn't go like completely wild. You know, we didn't want to. You can have like Death Row in PA, for instance, but what we didn't want was like 50 electric chairs in a row. You know, some like, you know, just murdering prisoners. You know, that was a bit.
Yeah, they all have to look into each other's eyes.
Yeah, it was a bit too kind of.
Just all around in a circle. You see everyone else.
Exactly. Yeah.
Someone presses the button, you have to guess who it is.
That's it. It's some kind of fucking horrible. What's that game with Anne Robinson? Weakest Link.
Yeah.
It's a horrible Weakest Link. So we didn't want that. So the prisons that we see, the ones that really grab us, is the scale. You know, just enormous scale, huge time sink that people have put into developing these monstrosities. Well, one of them, I think it's got just under 1,000 prisoners, all of whom are in solitary confinement. You know, locked down like 23.5 hours a day with guards with shotguns walking around. You know, it's just like, and when we first created Prison Architect, we wanted there to be like two extremes of play. You know, one of them extreme lockdown. You know, and that's definitely what we saw in that prison. You know, you call it hellhole or something. But the other side of it we wanted was like extreme leisure facility. They're kind of, you know, but that extreme is much less sort of visceral. You know, it just like looks nice, open prisons, you know, luxury cells and all that kind of stuff. But there's something when you look at like a really horrible prison where everyone's locked down, something inside of you goes, oh, that's horrible, you know, and that is that could be something that mankind would create, you know, and that it would be horrible if somehow I ended up there, you know, like some sort of worst nightmare. Whereas the more liberal side of things, you kind of look at and just go, well, you know, that wouldn't be so bad if I ended up there.
Yeah,
you know,
I guess I'd be okay with going to that prison.
Yeah, if I had
which
to.
Actually reminds me, I didn't do a video about it. I wrote an article about sort of some of the nicest prisons in the world.
Oh, right. Where
and they're all kind of the Nordic states, right? And it's crazy because I think it's Norway, right? You get one of the prisons is just an island, and you get put on this island on your own. Right, and that's it. They just leave you on this island, provide you with food and water and everything, and you're just kind of chillaxing on this island 24 hours a day. I'm like, deal, sign me up.
Do you think?
What kind of crime do I have to commit to end up in there?
Or maybe it would be like a horrible psychological prison of the mind. You know, when you know, is there anyone else on the island? You know, or
you could get like Lost style,
exactly.
airdrop like prison guards in.
You'd never see anybody else. You know, I don't know.
Some massive black cloud that turns up for like 10 minutes and then is never mentioned ever again. That show was just so anticlimactic. So we mentioned other people's designs. What about your? So you've spent, I assume, hours on this game.
Some.
Just a couple of millions of hours.
But it's more for us. Not really building prisons, you know, because what we have to do is test all of the new systems to make sure they work. You know? So I've spent time like with one prisoner in one cell, watching him, you know, go around, making sure that the right things are happening to him, kind of at the right time. So that's our aspect of it, and the thought of spending hours building a prison just makes me shudder.
What was the sort of initial moment where you went from, oh yeah, prison architect could be something we do, to prison architect is definitely something that's going to happen and we will make it happen? Sort of when did it go from potential idea to we have to do this?
Well, all the ideas come from Chris. You know, he's the guy that is kind of responsible for all of Introversion's kind of creative output, as I put it. And I see myself very much as the guy that edits Chris a bit, like a book editor, you know. But also I'll help with, you know, recruitment of the staff. You know, I'll do the production side of things to try and turn it into, you know, a reality and you know, those kind of things. So in the past, Chris had always just started working on a new game, but this time, I don't know why, he decided that he'd be a little bit more inclusive, you know, and he sat down with me with a PowerPoint and said, I want to make this prison game, you know. And I knew that there were no other games on the cards, and I thought it looked cool, you know, I just liked the idea of it. And we worked on it for about a year before it was ready to go into early access, and that's what we did. And we never think this game is going to be an enormous bestseller. You know, we've done very nearly 2 million units now of Prison Architect. You know, it's a really successful game. But we never think like that. You know? And we thought when we first released it, we'll see how much we make, and how much we make will determine how much effort we put into this project, you know, in terms of time, not how much effort. Like
of course, because the most sort of the biggest thing you can invest in a game or in anything is time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and everything that we put in it needs to be brilliant. But the scope of Prison Architect would have been a lot smaller if there had been less interest in the game. You know? So we never do any predictions or anything like that. I don't think it's a possible thing to do, actually. I think any attempt to make a prediction for a game's sales is going to just harm the creative process. Which we're not about. You know, we're just about putting a game out there and putting great games out there, I should say, and almost not caring too much if they find a market. You know, that's definitely we do the most we can to find a market. You know, we work hard to sell a game, but the commercial objective is not the primary one. You know?
It's make a great game first, and then make a best-selling game second.
That's right. Make a great game first, and then do as much as you can to sell that game, and also don't spend too long making that great game, right?
Yeah,
because if you do at least before you know how popular it is, that's when bad things can happen.
Yeah.
You know, but
it happens. It happens.
Yeah.
Was there ever a moment where you thought the exact opposite of that, where there was something you wanted to push and it didn't quite work out, or you were thinking of kind of implementing something and there was negative feedback to it but you weren't anticipating?
Yes, in terms of Prison Architect's development, most of what we did was well received, in the monthly updates. There was Fog of War that we put in and we broke the game completely.
Right.
And we got told very quickly, you've broken the game completely.
Yes.
We could go,
And it being the internet, they probably didn't tell you very nicely.
Well, they're not too bad because within a few hours we fixed it. And we were always very honest that this is an early access game with lots of bugs. So it wasn't like that. So there was that, but there's a huge amount of depth and complexity in Prison Architect that I don't think that any developer could have put in without a kind of test and check cycle running as tightly as ours, because all of the systems kind of lay it in, right? So you layer it in, it goes out to, initially 1,000 people, then 10,000, then 100,000, and you get the feedback, right, this update has not ruined the game. You go, good, now I can put an extra layer of depth into that, or an extra layer above it, whatever way you want to look at it. But there are hundreds of different systems that all interact, and there's no way that you can possibly manage that complexity and predict all of those different interactions. So the only way you can see it is by allowing enough people to play it to say, yes, all of these complex interactions still work within Prison Architect. It's not the case that because you've introduced contraband coming through visitation that every prisoner has now got loads of knives and every prison just fails. So everything we were able to develop a really good and deep and complex simulation because of the not necessarily negative or positive feedback, because people didn't tend to say we love this, it's just this is interesting,
because as much as that's nice, it doesn't help with moving forward. If someone goes, oh yeah, the game's awful, you're like, well, why is it awful? What can I do to fix that?
And I think that people, it's like a psychological thing where people kind of go, I love that, and then they have their own personal opinion of what to do next. So a lot of it, when the feedback is, you could do this now, we took that to mean we've just done that correctly. So in terms of what people wanted, we kept an eye on it, but generally we had a big list of everything that we wanted to put in the game right from the start. And so other people's suggestions were already on our list. So the analogy I used for the process was, we're imagine a big oil tanker, sailing along the ship, and all of the community are little tiny tugboats. And every now and again, all of those tugboats would pull the oil tanker in a particular direction where we'd have to look up, we'd have to go, oh shit, And by steering us in that different direction quite early in the process, we'd actually end up at a completely different destination from where we would have been, But otherwise, the tugboats were all pulling in slightly different directions, and we're just kind of
split down the middle,
sort of doing our thing.
So you mentioned completely breaking the game once. Is there anything that you kind of personally wanted to add in but has been too difficult or just haven't had the time to yet? Something that's...
No, not really. I mean, if there was something that I wanted in the game, it would be in the game.
Right. So there's nothing where you're like, oh, this would be a great addition to add X, Y, Z. But
we've still got big lists. And we're still updating the game every month. So there's nothing that particularly stands out, because a lot of the ideas are as cool as each other. But there's nothing. I'm very happy with how Prison Architect turned out. And one of the things that we wanted to do was, when we released version 1, we wanted that to be the definitive version of Prison Architect, right? So version 1 that we put out in October was that. Now the updates that we've done afterwards have been great, and have fixed a lot of bugs. The game's more stable, performance. We worked on that. We're putting extra complexity in. However, that stuff is brilliant, but not necessary.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know? So the version 1, we were happy with that and would have stood by that, you know, as Introversion's 5th video game. You know?
Yeah.
And the extras that we're putting in are just kind of little tickly bonuses.
Yeah.
You know?
Cool. I think that's all.
Cool.
Is there anything you think I should ask?
He's happy.
Brilliant. He likes it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.